Welcome back to From the Ground Up. This is a podcast for Dow Smith Company employees, clients, and friends. Dow Smith Company is a design builder here in sunny Smyrna, Tennessee. We design and build commercial buildings, churches, and medical facilities. And we have a very special podcast today, actually a two-part podcast. I am your host, Taylor Loyal, and I'm going to be joined by Coach Matt Williams of Smyrna High School and also Dow Smith. This is going to be a really great podcast, and I hope you all enjoy it. And how you apply that to the team?
Well, I mean, a lot of the credit probably goes, my dad was one of my coaches, and dad was a football coach, but also our head baseball coach when I was in high school, and he also coached me when I was in Little League. And, a lot of those foundational type things came from him. And, a lot of that I can give credit to my dad for that. And then it's grown. Obviously, I think anybody would tell you any kind of culture, it's not just me. I mean, it's people that I've been blessed to, God's put in our life and on our staff. And people like Dow, I learn from Dow every day and the things he does. And but I think the God part, my parents came from them. I mean, that was something that was important, and something I say our kids need that. Our kids need to hear positive messages and things of that nature, and that's something we try to do. So, but I think the credit goes to a lot of people, not just Matt Williams. I mean, I'm just part of it, and but I think the grades part also. My dad always stressed that to his players. We had to have good grades. You didn't play, and so that's something we try to make important. And our goal is really to try to get kids that can go out into the world and be, good citizens and contributors and good fathers, good husbands. And that's always been my main goal. I think if we can do that and we get aimed in that direction, we'll have a good football team if you get kids that have that mindset. So that's sort of our aim.
So, Matt, I'm going to start maybe with a little bit of story how I got so endeared to the culture at Smyrna High School. I don't know if you've heard this story or not, but I'm going to start the story with, I'm going to brag on my son. Mm-hmm. And he came to me. It was the end of his 8th grade year, and he came to me and said, "Dad, I'm going to play on the Smyrna High School football team." And I remember hearing that, and I thought, what did he just say? Because my son had never even put on a football helmet or shoulder pads. And it took me by a big surprise. And so I just, okay. And so summer came, and he goes to the first workout or whatever, and off he goes. And I'm scratching my head. I wonder what this is going to look like or be. And I come home from work that night, and he comes back, and I said, "Harris, how'd it go?" And he goes, "Went fine. I vomited 3 times."
Yeah.
And I go, "Okay. Are you going to go back tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I am." Yeah. And I was really surprised, and I kind of wanted to be part of that, just talk about how tough my son is, how emotionally and mentally tough he is. And so he goes back, and I go, "I need to check him about the well-being." And so I snuck over there, and it took me a while to navigate to find the practice field. Finally found it. I could see where they're at, and I wanted to kind of be sneaky about it. Didn't really want him to see me, and I didn't want to be a distraction. And so I kind of snuck around the softball field, and I stood up on the rock wall that overlooks it, and there was a couple of other parents up there. So I watched, and it took me a while to find him. It so happened he was right below me, and they were doing drills, and defensive back drills. So probably 8 or 9 kids in line, and I can't remember the coach's name, and he wasn't on staff after that. But I watched one kid do it, and you could tell he had real talent and all like that, and he coached him up and showed him how to do this. Went through, then Harris came up and did it. And did it like somebody was probably his first day wearing a helmet, and all like that. Yeah. And he took the time, and he coached him and gave him the same amount of attention that he did the stud who started it.
Right.
And I just said, wow. I mean, he just took that time and treated them just the same, and here's to get like that. And I go, that's a culture thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really grateful for that coach. And I can't remember that coach's name, but I go, that's a culture thing right there. He did that like that's what I am supposed to do. And that's where I go, whoa, something really cool is happening here.
Yeah.
And he stuck it out. One of the best things that I think happened to him, there's things he learned that as a parent I can't teach. Mm-hmm. And probably one of those things of that, and it's kind of our thing, is peer accountability and peer trust. And I just saw that there. So Matt, speaking a little bit about that, and I think culture does not happen by accident.
Right.
How it happens, I'm trying to figure that out. So how do you think that happened?
Well, I mean, I don't have probably the perfect answer. I just think we go to it, and every kid's important. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are. And everybody, I think, in a business world or anything you want to, any venture you're going to, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and everybody has what they're going to add to, contribute. So I think that's the main thing. And that's one of the reasons when we practice, we split into a purple group, which is mainly your older kids, your kids that have played on Friday nights or going to. And then you have your gold group, which is your JV type.
Yep.
And we coach them the same. We have purple offense, gold defense, and then we flip. And I think that's something, if you're going to build any kind of culture, also development, staff development or player development, I mean, you've got to have those things as a foundational importance in your organization. And that's something we try to do. But that's stuff I see, like I said, I've learned a lot from you over the years, and you might not even know I'm paying attention because it's probably hard to tell sometimes. But, a lot of your ideas and things you talk about as far as your employees and, those things I've tried to learn from. And, I wouldn't be where I'm at without you. I can tell you that because whether you know it or not, I'm listening. But, yeah, I just think it's the goal of making everybody important no matter who they are. We had a kid this year, Luke Wolf, didn't play. He may have played, 15 plays the entire season, but he's still very, very important, and the kid won't ever forget because his work ethic, his toughness, his grit, his contribution on scout team. People don't talk about that. Do your job, know your role, and a lot of times that's not to be the star, but it's to do your part.
Talk about the importance of the scout team.
Oh, man. I mean, I can tell you the years we've struggled, it hadn't been good. And the years we've been good, it's been challenging. I think that's something I look forward to from the spring. We have a freshman class who had some success last year. They were the county champions, and our scout looks improved, I can tell you that, because we got kids that are going to be sophomores that are hungry to show what they can do, and it's going to make us better. You don't get better for somebody we call it brother-in-law. You don't get better by somebody brother-in-law you and giving it to you. You got to be willing to take it. So. I think that's the cool thing about any sport, and in the books I read from different coaches, Nick Saban, he's at the end of the day, whether he's a CEO or a football coach, it's all the same thing,
it's the
really.
Same thing.
When you get down to
really
it.
Is.
So,
yeah. You talked a little bit there about unique abilities with players, but having you and your brother both coaching the team at the same time. How do you guys? It's something we're sort of a journey we're going through here at our company, as everybody kind of understanding their unique ability.
Right.
And Dow's been very insistent upon really leaning into those unique abilities, doing the things that you're great at, the things that you're not good at, let somebody else do them. How do you and your brother handle that? Do you feel like you each have your own unique abilities?
Oh, sure. I mean, I wouldn't. I was blessed to get to coach my brother. That was the first thing. We didn't start out that way. Obviously, he was at Gallatin for a long time, Shelbyville and Gallatin, and I was at Smyrna. I got to Smyrna in 1998. And, we were blessed to be able to coach together, and that's something I'll never, I'll always cherish. And then when he was able to be our offensive coordinator 2008, 2010, before he went to be the head coach at Gallatin, I was blessed to get him back. They lost a good one in Gallatin, I'll tell you that. And I don't think he was appreciated for what he was, because he's a good man, a good father, a good husband. And
He really
I don't
is.
think there's been anybody at Gallatin High School that worked harder, I can tell you that. And so it was a blessing to get back for me. And he's my, right arm, or whatever you want to say. He's my right-hand man. And so I think it's important, his strengths. There's a lot of them. And a lot of times I go to him, and he'll give me perspective I hadn't even thought about. So think that's the thing. You got to have that person that you can trust, learn, lean on. And, he's been there for me, obviously, in a lot of situations. But I think we both have our strengths, we both have our weaknesses, and I think we try to play off of that. And I think he would probably say the same thing. There's times that situations wouldn't go like they did if I hadn't asked his opinion. And I'd lean very heavily on that. But he's a good coach, one of the best coaches I've ever been around. And, when we had my nephew on the team, I was blessed to coach my son, and I was real quick. Luckily, he was an offensive lineman, and I wasn't coaching offensive line. I coached defense that year. I have coached offensive line in the past. And luckily, I had coaches that sort of pulled me back to where I had to stay out of his way, which was good. And I think that's what we're trying to do with my nephew right now. I try to grab him before Mark can get to him. Breck, he's our starting center. And, Breck's got a little bit of that fire attitude that well, it reminds me of me and Mark, or Mark and I, excuse me. And but that's been cool too, getting to coach my son, and I'm getting to coach my nephew, and that's something you can't. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. So,
Matt, one of I've learned many things from you as well. One of them is there was the phrase, saw it maybe typed somewhere, but something like that. A players-led team will beat a coaches-led team.
100%.
And when I hear that and when I say that, there's something about that truth that just gives me energy. What is that? Does that really work? When have you had it? And maybe when have you not had it? Because your players are coming and going all the time. So each team has a very unique personality. And some years I've been able to see this is a player-led team. Mm-hmm. Some years better than others. How have you tried to develop that and work into that?
It's a full-time job, I can tell you that. Because you're dealing with 15 to 19-year-old kids, and they're trying to find their place in the world. And they, I think it's human nature to want to be accepted and popular. And I tell them all the time, leadership's not popular. You're going to do a lot of things and make a lot of decisions that are going to not make people happy. And you got to be willing to do that. You got to be willing to speak up. And generally, when you speak up, you're going to be ruffling feathers. That's just the nature of the beast. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, I can definitely think back on teams. 2010 team, state runner-up team. Kids like Deion Meadows, Nate Smith, Jeremiah Bryson, Parrish Gaines, T-Ray Malone. You had leaders that weren't afraid to speak up. I've had a lot of competitive kids, but you weren't going to find a more competitive kid than Jeremiah Bryson and Deion Meadows. It didn't matter if they were playing football or playing checkers. They were going to beat somebody was getting beat. Somebody was going to talk about it, And then we've had other years I can think of, and I won't mention names on this one, but, probably had the talent to do more than we did, but there were a lot of egos and just not that they were coach-led teams. It's like pulling people. It's like we call them energy vampires. I can't remember the author of the book I read that talked about them. It was something about a bus. I remember the bus.
John Gordon.
Yeah, John Gordon. That's right. And he talks about energy vampires. And if you have energy vampires, generally your organization is going to struggle. Football team or business or whatever. And I think isn't important. It's very important. And player-led teams are that way, and that's something we try to give the message across to. And then football, it's a little bit different than maybe running a business.
Not a lot. There are more similarities than differences.
Well, I guess you can fire them in both the settings, I guess. But that's when you're dealing with. You don't want to do it either time. But when you're dealing with kids, you try not to do that too quickly. Obviously, you want to give them a chance to grow up. And I think that's the thing I struggle with. Is they come in as 15-year-old kids, and there's a maturity point. Mm-hmm. It's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. So you got to figure that out. And I've had kids. I've got a couple right now that they sort of just now figuring out, and they're going to be seniors. And that's a little late, but it's better than never. And you just got. I think the biggest thing we try to do is you just try to keep chipping away with that message. And I tell them, you got to, being a coach or a boss or anything, you got to get them to buy what you're selling. And as long as they're buying what you're selling, you're going to be okay. But as soon as they stop buying what you're selling, there's a problem. And that's what you got to fight. And I don't have the perfect answer. I think we just try to every day. And Coach Villarreal is huge in that too. I was lucky to hire him in 2011. And, he played with my brother at Tennessee Tech. And he was, a lot of people don't know this, that was Mr. Robert Rake's final hire was Coach Gabe Villarreal. And he still talks about that. And he made a good one,
Let's talk about Mr. Rakes, because when it comes to culture, and the culture at Smyrna High School, Mr. Rakes has got to be part of that conversation. So tell us your memories and thoughts of Mr. Rakes.
Well, I hold him very dear to my heart because he believed in me when a lot of people thought that wasn't a smart decision. And talk about a leader, he didn't care what people thought. He was going to do what he thought was best for Smyrna High School, and that's what he did. And I'm always grateful for that because I think I was 32 or 33 years old when I got the head coaching job at Smyrna High School. And again, probably wasn't the most popular decision, and I realize that, and I don't really think about that much, but indebted to him for believing in you. I think people that believe in you always remember, and you're always thankful for. But I've got a couple of stories. I'll tell you how Mr. Rakes was. My first year of coaching, we had a game. I can't remember where the game was at, but we were going to need to leave, get out of class a little earlier to get to our pregame meal, to get on the bus to be able to get to the game. And so I went to Mr. Rakes. Mr. Rakes, if it's okay with you, I'd like to get him out a little earlier than normal. He said, well, what time are you thinking? I said, well, I'm thinking like 3:10 maybe. He looked at me, said, let's make it 3:15. I said, yes, sir. So he was letting me know, we're going to do it my way. And I know it's 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is what we're going to do. So people ask about Mr. Rakes, that's what he was. You were going to do it his way. But I'll say this, if he believed in you, he would let you do it. He would say, I'm going to let you do what you think. And even when he hired me, the second interview I had, he had some thoughts on something, and I disagreed with him. And said, that's not how I want to do it, and I'd like to do this. And he said, well, I'm going to let you do that. And I think he was a great leader because with me, as soon as I felt like he believed in me, I was going to run through a wall for him. I didn't care. Yeah. And I was going to work my rear end off to get results. And it's worked good. Some years it's been great. Some years we've had down years. But I can tell you the down years, I probably worked harder than I did on the years that was, we were really good. And that's just the nature of the beast too. Sometimes when you're in a struggle, on that struggle bus, I call it, you got to, you probably grind too much at times. There's probably a happy medium there, and I've probably crossed that line a few times. But I'll never forget him because he believed in me. That's something I can say about him. But great leader, great man, and I don't know if you're going to find many examples of somebody who was dedicated to something more than Mr. Rakes was at Smyrna High School. So,
I got a quick question for you, just along the lines of your relationship with Mr. Rakes. I think in a lot of ways you were just talking about the relationships that you have with the players. Mm-hmm. And, you got players that come in as freshmen and leave as seniors. When do you know they need more help, and when do you know you need to get out of their way because they're ready to become leaders?
That's hard to answer, but I would say, I think just everybody's got their different personalities. I think you got kids like Arion Carter or Thomas Jones. Arion's playing at UT now. It was pretty evident when he walked in he had a maturity beyond his years. And I think it's just gauging that maturity level. Kids come in and you can tell they're not very mature, and I think you sort of know. You just try to cultivate them as best you can. But you lean on those kids that come in. Adam Smotherman was another. I remember I make fun of him all the time. We laugh about it. We used to bring our 8th graders over to lift, and when Adam Smotherman walked through the door from Smyrna Middle, he had first on, he looked like a 24-year-old man. He had on his what he was wearing, like it wasn't what an 8th grader was going to wear. Had his watch on, had his own notebook with his lifting, his workouts. And he was that organized as an 8th grader. Wow. And then he came, there's a reason why Adam Smotherman was a Mr. Football winner, and he's now the head strength coach at the University of Virginia. And so I think you just know when they come in, their maturity level. You can tell the ones that are going to try to be followers versus the ones that are going to try to be leaders or are leaders. And I think, leaders can be improved, I think, but I do think a lot of times that's something that's ingrained at your house, at your home, parenting. I think parenting is, you talk about football teams, schools, what are your parents like? Because if I have a kid that's immature and or has issues, a lot of times the reason's not far away, it's at their house, and you have to sort of deal with that too. And I think we have to be more patient at times because we have to understand a lot of times I spend a lot of time punishing or getting on to a kid for what their parents are doing. Not even what they're doing. So, that's part of it. It's not a perfect science, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You just got to try to gauge that maturity level and go from there.
And Matt, on that, because I feel like a big part of the mission of Smyrna High School as a whole, but also all athletics and like that, is we have a lot of kids that don't have a lot of resources at home. A whole lot of kids that, it's a small minority of kids who have a 2-parent home.
Yep.
I mean, that's a small minority, and then there's many that have one half-assed parent at home.
Yeah.
And that's just part of our mission that we got to keep doing.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away. And I think that's where we make the difference. So speak more into, I mean, it makes it hard, but speak into that. And what rewards have you seen in fighting that mission?
Well, I think you got to try to fill the void. That's what we're trying to do. You do have, and I have somewhat a unique perspective. Not to bring this, but I was thrown into a single parent role, with 2 teenagers. And so I know, when I tell the parents this, I know the struggle of trying to, balance all that and trying to figure all that out. I had a son playing football at Smyrna High School, and I had a daughter who ended up going to Stewart's Creek High School to cheer. So I was trying to juggle all that, So sometimes it's not always, I don't say, a lot of those single parents, I'm not saying they're bad parents, they're not. They're probably great parents. They're just spread thin, and that's where we got to try to step in and fill the void. Now, there are parents that are doing their kids disservice. We deal with that too, but, I think you just got to try to fill that void the best you can. And, I've seen a lot of kids, we've got kids now, and I won't use names, but they come from, you have a decision. I say that all the time to people, and they're young, but I think the biggest thing we're trying to get across to them is you have the decision to not, whatever your family history's been, you don't have to be the same way. You don't have to. You can change it, and we're here to help you with that. And some of those kids take that and they'll use our advice and use our, we are like fathers. We're not their father. We are father figures, and we take that very seriously. And that's the biggest thing I try to convey to them is, look, you look at your family, and what you see, is that what you want to be or not? And a lot of them will look me in the eye and say, no. I say, well, then start making decisions every day, little decisions to change that. Because you can be whatever you want to be, and we'll help you get there. But you got to be willing to make those changes. And that's the biggest struggle we have because, environment is huge. Just like you're talking about culture. If you're coming from an environment that's always struggle, fighting, just rough environment, you're going to have an edge to you and you're going to be rough. So, again, it's when you're dealing with young people, there are challenges, and a lot of people don't understand that. And also, the dynamics of Smyrna High School, how they changed over the years. That's been a learning experience as well.
And Matt, I've seen it multiple times, and not knowing the details of where the young man is coming from, but being able to see him transform, and you can tell he's not coming from the best home environment.
Right.
And I do believe, I think the only power I have and we all have is the power to choose. And the choices that we make will determine our future. Mm-hmm. And they will. And so with that, the program at Smyrna High School, with all kids, my kid very much needed it as well too, there's structure, there's accountability, there's community. Mm-hmm. In his case, there was unconditional love. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jeremiah Bryson, one of the best kids ever. Mm-hmm. I remember more than once him coming up, patting Harris on the back and saying something like, "I'm glad." I don't know exactly what he said, but Jeremiah was glad Harris Smith was there.
Yep.
And that meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to him.
Yep.
That's a culture thing. And so I've seen many kids, if they didn't play football at Smyrna High School, where they be at today is not a good place.
Right.
And I firmly believe there's so many that are at a great place in those times they spent in the locker room with Coach V, out on the practice field. And probably more, we all enjoy the victories, but we learn the most through defeats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Jacob Armstrong, our pastor, book he recommended for me to read is Leading with a Limp. Mm-hmm. And I found those that are scarred and are limping are really good leaders that can.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, talk a little bit more about how you've worked through the struggle bus, and you've got your scars.
Yeah,
and you can go. Speak into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think God puts you in places for a reason, and we don't always like where we're at the time. But I think even before the big struggle I had when my late wife passed away in 2018, I thank God put me in some situations. I left Smyrna High School and missed out on 2 state championships. I went with a friend, Bobby Wells, who passed away this past July. Another big loss. My mentor, guy I really loved and wanted to be. Learned a lot of football and a lot of stuff from Bobby. Went with him. He got a head coaching opportunity. Went with him, and a lot of those situations I was thrown into, I was not ready. I'll be honest with you. I knew football, but I was a defense coordinator, and I was learning on the job, I guess you'd say. And I think that toughens you when you're not having success. You're working your rear end off now. There's a lot of days when I would go from the game, and we would be already in the film that night, trying to figure out problems, and I would go pick up the paper out of the driveway on Saturday morning, go and take a shower and turn around and go right back to school and do film. But we weren't winning. And people don't see that. They think you're just an idiot. And they don't see the grind and they don't see how much you care. So I think that, first of all, toughens you and you get thick skin. And there are a lot of contentious moments because everybody's got pride and it can be good and bad. It really can. I've had a lot of instances where I've been humble because it's been bad. But I think that's the first thing that God put me into situationally, that I had to toughen. Either I was going to get tougher or I was going to quit, and I didn't quit. So I think God gave me the opportunity with Mr. Rakes to believe in me. I think he knew what I was, and maybe I just needed the opportunity, and got that opportunity. And then, did go through my wife being sick and losing her, and that's through struggle. I think you do. I think I tell our kid all the time, stress builds strength, and it does. It's not fun. And you don't want to have to do it, but and there's a lot of moments where anybody that's been through struggle, we have great moments, we have bad moments. I've had plenty of bad ones, but I think having people like you in my life, Jacob, Brian Harrell's huge for me. FCA, he's been huge for me, and just people speaking positivity in your life, and I think that's big too. And I'm thankful. You can't get through anything without good people around you, and I've been blessed to have that. And we need to tell a joke or something. It's getting heavy.
Wow.
I've got a few. I don't know if I can tell them on here, though.
No, I'm going deeper. I'm going deeper. And the loss of Shannon, Matt, for me, was at the very least faith bending.
Yeah.
To be honest, maybe even faith fracturing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still struggle with that.
Yeah. You don't ever understand, but it's not for us to know yet. And we'll find out one day. Hope to, anyways. And I think the biggest thing I struggle with is kids.
Yeah.
So.
And
now you're gonna make me tear up.
Well, I'm crying as well. I guess where I'm at in that, right or wrong, no, like that. I believe you got to lament. Lamenting is part of the rhythm of the Psalms. Mm-hmm. There's even a book called Lamentations, and I still lament the loss of Shannon. With that, though, in the rhythm of Psalms, there's to be gratitude and joy and praise, and I'm in that finally getting to that, but. I'm scarred from that still.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think the scars, are there for a reason, and I think they do. That's something I use as testimony with my team. I mean, it's we're all gonna go through tough stuff, and you better have faith to lean on, in my opinion. Yeah. Because if you don't, it's gonna be. And again, it's even when you do have faith, it's hard enough. You still falter at times.
Yeah.
But that's something I try to tell my kids, and everybody talks about God speaking to them. That's something I've always heard. God spoke to me, and there's a lot. I never felt that. I didn't know what that was like, and I had that opportunity when she was, about to pass away. I'm not gonna tell that story, but I think God gave me the opportunity to say goodbye, and that was something I'm always gonna be grateful for. But I tell our team all the time about, just you're gonna have hard things happen in your life. And you got to keep fighting because you don't ever know what's on the other side. And if you don't fight, you're not ever going to find out. Yeah. And I know God's got something in store for me at the end of the rainbow, hopefully, and hopefully the struggle will turn into something that I believe will be and it's already happening. I mean, as long as one kid is positively affected and his life's positively affected by our message and what we're trying to do, then I'm good. That's the big thing. And a lot of people don't know. And I'll tell this: I resigned in 2020 for about, I don't know,
48 hours.
Yeah, something like that, 24, 48 hours. And my son was going to be a senior. It was crazy, but I sort of I lost my marbles a little bit. Not literally, but I think that happened. COVID happened, and it was just like, what else can happen?
Yeah.
And luckily God spoke to me there and said, you're messing up, dude. Snap out of it, and I did. Now, none of this stuff that's happening right now will be. I'm not going to say it wouldn't be happening, but I wouldn't have been blessed to have been a part of it.
It would not be happening.
So, I'm thankful to God for that, for snapping me out of that, and I wouldn't have got to coach my son his senior year, which that was sort of it was COVID year, so that was an odd year. My son was playing, and he was a distance learner, so. I didn't get to get that experience with him, being in my office and the things I got to do with my dad. So that was hard, but still thankful for the time I did have getting to coach him. So,
well, you have fought through that extremely, extremely well. It's helped me. It's helped many, many people, and we're still learning that. And with that, though, look at what the great things that are happening at Smyrna High School. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're doing the field house now. What a magical project that has been so far. Now, knock on wood, we're right there at the finish line for the addition, and we're about to start the locker room renovation. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, in my opinion, that's going to be as impactful as what you can easily see. And that project has just gone, God, almost some miracles have happened. Again, we want to thank the Hollingsheads and Smyrna Ready mix for that very generous gift. You talking about a group that they walk the walk.
Yeah, no question.
They don't really talk. They'll talk the talk, but they walk the walk when it comes to generosity and hard work and pursuit of excellence. I mean, SRM walks the walk in that. And so there's kind of, that's the current energy, and you look back and they did the turf field. So I couldn't be more excited to be a Bulldog than I am right now.
No, it's a great time to be a Bulldog for sure. And, I just, again, people God puts in your life, it started, Mary Esther Reed and I were talking. I was actually working on trying to get funds for a video scoreboard, and she and I were talking, and she was very integral part of this process as well. I want to thank her for sure. But just had, went and sat down with Jeff. Actually came to my office from SRM, Jeff Hollingshead. Was willing. And think about that. Most people in his position would, first of all, be hard to find time with. And I was supposed to go to his office, but he had a conflict. He says, "Hey, I'm gonna be in that area to stop by." So he stopped by my office, and we had a great conversation. And we came out of the office. We were going to get turf, and I can't remember exactly what was said, but then I got home and I was like, because you and I, and you actually spearheaded this, probably 2012, 2013, somewhere in that 14, we already had plans for a field house renovation. Not on this scale, but yeah.
Let me go to that. God, then was a dream, and it's about to come a reality.
Fruition, yeah.
But I remember sitting, and we went to go play BGA, and I think it was the 2011 season. And
that was a fun one. I think it was 12. I think it was 2012.
Okay, could have been 2012. Anyway, it was not a good road trip.
That was the season that almost made Matt Williams no more. I was about to be.
That was a tough.
I thought I was going to be hitting the bricks after that one.
But I'm sitting in their locker room. So BGA, a very nice private school in Williamson County. And before the game, we're sitting in their weight room. And it was nice.
Yep.
And I just sat there and I said, if our kids have this, imagine what could happen.
Yeah.
And then I said, our kids are going to have this.
Yeah. No.
And that's where I was born, which was through, and we got our ass whooped that night. and so and it was a painful one too.
Yeah.
And so I guess God is pretty good at making beautiful things out of messes.
Yeah, I got a funny story from that night I got to throw in there.
All right.
Well, that was the one year, and I'm not going to throw my coach on the bus that forgot to order the stickers, the S stickers for our helmets. You know who it is. Bless his heart. Just, love him to death. But we did not have our helmet decals because we thought we'd ordered them and we hadn't, and they weren't in yet. So we just had our helmets, no decal. And we're lining up to go out to play our first game of the year, first actual game against BGA of the year. And I'm sitting there, and all the kids are jumping up and down, ready to go. And this one kid looks right at me and says, "Coach, this is a jamboree, right?" I said, "No, son, this is the first ball game." So that's probably should have been a sign from God it was going to be a rough season. But he thought it was a scrimmage. So he wasn't a big contributor, and I don't know how smart that young man was, but I still remember that. That was definitely a sign. That was a rough season, and I don't want to gig too much here, but we still managed to beat Laverne 7-6 that year.
Yes, we did.
So.
Yes, we did.
You finally have the stickers, probably too, right?
We had the stickers by then, yeah. We did.
So Laverne knew who beat him.
That's right. Oh man.
Well, listen, Coach, it's been an absolute honor to have you here today, and just really appreciate everything you're doing for students at Smyrna High. Appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with us. Unless you got anything else to add.
Said enough.
Folks, you can find us on dowsmith.com, Facebook, Instagram. You can be one of our 23 followers on Twitter. And thanks for listening.
All right, thanks guys.